Hey there, and welcome back to another Miraculous Ladybug Season 1 retrospective review. And today we're going to be talking about the episode Copycat, which is yet another one of these early episodes that I remember almost nothing about. And Season 1 really does seem to have a big stretch of quite forgettable content. Like seriously, I remember nothing about this episode except the main villain had a crush on Ladybug, and yet also looks like he's in his early 20s. And from looking on the wiki, apparently he is a bit younger than that, but still, in Season 1, isn't Ladybug like 13? Yikes. Yikes, yikes, yikes. That is quite an unsettling plot point. I mean, yeah, it's like a magic suit, but you can still tell she's a kid. But sure, why not? It's not like this show's well known for its healthy relationship dynamics anyway, with the stalking and the creeping and the not taking no for an answer. Ugh. So yeah, this is almost par for the course at this stage of the game. But anyway, with all that being said, let's jump into the episode. So we start off the episode with Tikki and Marinette standing on the balcony of her house, where we get some more Tikki sass, where she once again relentlessly mocks Marinette for being socially awkward and being unable to speak more than a sentence to Adrien before breaking down into stuttering or saying some weird shit. And honestly, I really miss this early version of Tikki. I do enjoy the show acknowledging just how pathetic Marinette can be at times, and it gives Tikki a semblance of a personality beyond being the sweet little red thing. Anyway, Tikki tells Marinette that she should just give Adrien a phone call, and thus Marinette calls Alia, because for some reason she assumes that she'd have Adrien's number. It's not really explained why that would be, but who cares, it doesn't matter, irrelevant to the story. We then cut down to the park, literally only a few steps away from Marinette's house, where a statue of Ladybug and Cat Noir is about to be unveiled to the public, and the mayor and the sculptor are waiting for their guests of honour, Ladybug and Cat Noir. With the sculptor, Theo, hoping to get his photo of Ladybug, the one that inspired the statue in the first place, autographed. And so far, not too creepy. Just a fan of a superhero wanting an autograph. Nothing wrong with that. I too would probably be hyped to meet a real life superhero that actually has powers if this was the real world. It would be exciting. And so it is a bit of a shame that she's not going to arrive on time, as despite this event literally going on right outside her house, and with her scheduled to be there, I mean, this is pre-organised, I mean, you'd think she'd have an alert on her phone or something, she's somehow forgotten, and thus, it'll probably lead to some Akuma shenanigans in the future. So we then cut back to Marinette to see what she's up to, and we see that Alia has already arrived at her house, and they're preparing for Marinette to call Adrien to try to ask him on a date. And of course, she tries her best, and fails hard. And not only is the voicemail that she leaves really awkward and kind of cringe, despite the fact that Alia gave her a script to read, but she also manages to forget to hang up the phone and thus reveals a little bit too much about her obsession with him in the latter half of the message. And thus, he has a creepy surprise waiting for him when he next checks his phone. Naturally, this is a literal worst case scenario for almost anybody. I mean, if this happened to me, I'd be freaking out. How the hell do you come back from this socially? How? So of course she freaks out, and she realizes that she needs to somehow get her hands on his phone to delete the message. And much to Alia's shock, and disgust, let's be real, she acknowledges in this scene that Marinette is a crazy stalker. Marinette has a full calendar that lets her know what Adrien's up to at any one time. And I mean, how she gets her hands on this information is anybody's guess, but yeah, it's deep premium cringe. I mean, imagine how Adrien would feel if he stumbled across this shit. Ugh, creepy. And at this point, we cut over to fencing practice, where Plagg is binging cheese in the locker rooms, and damn, he really is living the dream at this point, isn't he? Wish I could binge cheese in the locker room. But meanwhile, Adrien is kicking some poor dude's ass in the fencing ring. Is that what you call it? A fencing ring? Field? Arena? Pfft, who knows? Who cares? But regardless, he knocks some poor dude down and then heads off to get a drink of water. And also, he knocked that guy down pretty hard. Is that normal for fencing? I've watched it for the Olympics and stuff on TV. I don't usually see them fall down. It doesn't strike me as that kind of sport. But anyway, he goes to his locker and discovers a sleeping Plagg who's eaten his stock of cheese. And he has a message on his phone, but he conveniently has no time to check it, as he has to head off to the statue unveiling. And so he transforms, and off he goes. Of course, Marinette and Alia notice Cat Noir arriving as they leave the bakery, and thus Alia goes off to the event, as she was supposed to go in the first place. But Marinette decides to blow it off and goes to steal Adrien's phone from the locker rooms at school. And so, whilst Theo the creepy sculptor continues to simp, talk about how he can feel it in the air that Ladybug's gonna arrive soon, Marinette infiltrates the locker rooms, and with the help of Tikki, breaks into Adrien's locker and steals his phone. And since she doesn't know his passcode, she just straight up leaves with it. Risky move there. And back at the ceremony, Cat Noir is talking to Theo, and Theo just starts to simp again. Dude needs to calm down. And then he implies that he was going to shoot his shot with Ladybug when she turned up. And obviously, that was never going to happen. But instead of rightfully laughing at this creepy man-child looking dude with his soul patch, thinking he'd have a shot with a superhero, Cat Noir for some reason gets possessive and states that he and Ladybug have a thing. And of course, this provokes our resident creeper into full incel mode, and he storms off, ranting about how only he deserves Ladybug and that Cat Noir doesn't, etc, etc. And then when he gets back to his workshop, he breaks a bust of Cat Noir he'd been working on and keeps up with the incel rhetoric. He doesn't deserve her, I do. You know, all the stuff you see on incel forums and whatnot. I mean, it feels like he's not far off calling Marinette a Stacy and Cat Noir a Chad and going full red pill up in here. And so of course Hawkeye akumatizes him, and off we go. Here comes Copycat, a villain who's basically just Cat Noir but with a bad personality. I mean, he's even obsessed with Ladybug, just like the original model. But whilst this is all going on, Adrien realizes he doesn't have his phone, and Marinette starts to panic that Adrien might use the Find My Phone feature, and realize that she stole it from him, which would be pretty awkward, not gonna lie. And whilst they're dealing with that irrelevant side plot, Copycat sabotages Cat Noir's reputation by stealing the Mona Lisa in broad daylight, and beating up a museum employee, quite brutally I might add. Dude goes flying. And of course, people whip out their phones to document the downfall of Cat Noir, and honestly, in real life, this would be an internet breaking news story. And of course, both our heroes find out about the theft, and both transform and make their way to the crime scene one after the other to try and figure out what the hell's going on. Cat Noir gets arrested briefly and then beats up the cops. No better way to make yourself seem innocent than by having an all-out brawl with a SWAT team, but okay, you do you. Before he decides to make his way to Theo's workshop, as he saw his lollipop stick at the scene of the crime. And this is a very big reach. Like, I know he's right, but it doesn't make it any less of a reach. I mean, how many people have lollipops every single day? And there are only so many stick designs. Like, I guess he knows he pissed the dude off earlier, but still, this is nothing more than a guess. A good guess, but a guess nonetheless. And hell, even noticing such a small object seems like it was a bit of a reach, but whatever. Needed to do it for the story. But he makes his way to the workshop and he gives Ladybug a call where he tells her that he's gonna handle this one. And of course she has a GPS of his location, so she goes there too, and this ends up being a good thing because the dude springs a trap and Cat Noir ends up chained up with no Cataclysm and no staff, looking like an idiot. So yeah, he comes out of this taking a giant L, as is tradition. Seriously, the more and more I watch, the more I notice that he almost never really figures into the end of any of the episodes in a major way, and has always mostly been a comic relief sidekick type thing. I swear, he's used in basically every episode to make the villain look strong for Ladybug to defeat. And honestly, it's getting to the point where it just seems like really lazy writing. Meanwhile, Copycat keeps doing his incel things and reveals his akumatized object, like an idiot, so our heroes can easily defeat him later on. Before Ladybug arrives, and there's a very brief standoff where she doesn't know who's who, but of course, since Copycat thinks they're in a relationship, he falls into Cat Noir's trap, who gets Ladybug to hint at their secret love, and since he goes along with it, and their love isn't real, he's discovered. They then use his Cataclysm to free Cat Noir, and the trio have one of the better battles of the season. Seriously, it's action-packed, it's fast-paced, they're flipping around like it's Star Wars. What's not to love? Anyway, during all of this, Ladybug somehow finds the time to use her Lucky Charms spoon, a Cat Noir staff, some tape, and her yo-yo to make a fishing rod. And she uses this fishing rod to tie up Copycat, steals the photo from him, deakumatizes him, fixes everything, you know the drill. And hey, the incel even calms down and acts like a reasonable person again. Happy endings for everybody. But yet, the episode is still not over, as Marinette still has Adrien's phone. And so she's forced to sneak it into his bag the next day at school when Adrien's talking to cursed Hatless Nino. And also, at that angle, he surely saw what was going on there. Also, Kim in the background definitely saw what was going on there. Hell, the entire class probably saw this shit and just said, "Oh, classic stalker Marinette." Before we end the episode with the four main friends planning to go to the movies together. Happy ending. And so, that brings us to the end of the episode. And all things considered, whilst I didn't expect much coming into it, and it still remains a pretty forgettable episode, I think this one was fairly decent. Although it was a bit weird that Cat Noir felt like the sidekick in an episode that focuses on his own personal nemesis, but whatever. That just seems to be how they like to write the show. But that being said, these are just my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the episode? Like it, hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.